Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Tim's News Explosion. Tonight is Monday, the 31st of January, 2022. We've made it through the first month of the new year, riding another COVID variant wave without any lockdowns, which is progress in my mind. We are live this week on the Wilmstrine YouTube and DLive channels, as well as on the Enhanced Entropy software. Hello to everyone in the live chat. In the pre-show, I typed all my hello responses to the regulars there. Margot, Binary, Crescio, Granny Annie, Dawn, Senator Slayer, and Colin. Welcome. It's great to see all of you there. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where after a tumultuous prelude to the Australian Open with the Novak Djokovic deportation saga, it has concluded with an epic finals weekend, which on Saturday saw Ash Barty win her first Australian Open women's singles, and the Special Ks, Nick Kyrgios and Thakanasi Kokkinakis winning the all-Aussie men's doubles final against the M&Ms Max Purcell and Max Ebden. The Victorian health advice changed for the finals weekend to allow Melbourne Park arenas to have 80% crowd capacity, but they still had to wear masks. So if you watched any of the finals, it's not like it was really enforced. In fact, many who were masked in the crowd pulled their masks down so they could shout their cheer or jeer loudly in the arena. The mask certainly didn't muffle the crowds on the finals weekend. We also saw, even though Tennis Australia instructed Channel 9 not to show any Where's Peng Shui shirts in the finals crowds, Drew Pavlu and Max Monk of the Democracy Alliance, they printed around about 1,000 Where's Peng Shui shirts, the disappeared Chinese tennis star who accused the former vice premier of rape. So all of those shirts, 1,000 shirts, were distributed, which were crowdfunded. But yes, very few made it onto TV. But Tennis Australia, mid last week, they did backflip and allow them to be worn, just tried to make sure that they weren't seen on TV. Now, obviously, Ash Barty winning the Australian Open, the first woman to win the Australian Open on home soil since 1978. She is all class, both on and off the court, which has made her such a beloved Aussie sports champion, she's won 3 Grand Slams now. The anti-Australian cultural left have made a few futile attempts to co-opt her sporting successes. This is because Barty, because her great-grandmother was Aboriginal, which makes her 1/8 Aboriginal. They've tried to basically try and co-opt her into their anti-Australian Aboriginal superstructure. But Barty, she loves her and is proud of her country. I mean, as if she is going to hate the other 7/8 of her ancestry. I mean, this is one of previous photos of her proudly displaying the Aussie flag, or proudly embracing it. And when she was making her acceptance speech after winning, when she was presented the Australian Open crown, well, trophy, I should say, by her idol, Ivan Gulagan-Corley. This is what she said.
I mean, this is just a dream come true for me, and I'm so proud to be an Aussie. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time.
And now, let's hope that Ash Barty, she wins many more Grand Slam championships in the years to come, can match her idol's record of 16 Grand Slams, but she'd have a mountain to climb if she ever wanted to try and beat Margaret Court's 64 Grand Slam titles. Margaret Court was not there on Saturday for the women's final. She was trapped in Western Australia due to Mark McGowan's continued hard border. So after the Australian Open recovered from the Novak Djokovic farce, as we can call it, what's next for Melbourne and Victoria after the Australian Open? There is now a strong push or strong feeling within the business sporting community and within the state government that Melbourne should bid for the 2026 Commonwealth Games and would probably win it because there aren't any other serious bidders sort of winning it by default, like how Brisbane won the 2032 Olympic Games by default. Melbourne only hosted the Commonwealth Games in 2006, only 16 years ago. The 2022 Commonwealth Games are in Birmingham, England. And of course, the Gold Coast, they hosted the Commonwealth Games back in 2018. So Australia, well, it's only for Commonwealth nations. So Australia tends to do very well and has hosted a whole heap of them. So obviously, bidding for the Commonwealth Games, it's part of the recovery of Melbourne post the Dan Andrews rolling lockdowns of the past 2 years. Dan Andrews will probably win a third term, and he might want to even be premier by 2026 when the Commonwealth Games will be, because the polls are pretty solid for Dan Andrews. Matthew Guy, I'm not sure if you've seen his regular Guy ads on TV, but they're very cringe. I mean, he's hardly got any traction this year. Matthew Guy tried to differentiate his post-lockdown agenda, which included getting rid of the QR codes and density limits, and also not mandating the booster. There was nothing about removing masks. Though Dan Andrews, moving on from being the lockdown king, he wants to be the mandate king, and he basically let the cat out of the bag about why mandates he thinks are so good.
Yeah, mandates are here. We didn't get to 93% without mandates.
Just on the mandates. So yes, the opposition leader this morning came out and said that he would not support the third dose mandate. And speaking in his press conference earlier, he said that the reason for that is, do you mandate dose 4, dose 5, dose 6 if it eventually gets to that? And when asked if Atagi had recommended the third, he basically said that the mandate is just not needed from now. What's your response to that? And I guess this whole notion of, will we see mandates dose 4, 5, 6 if it's recommended?
I think, you know what's mandatory? Following the advice of experts. So I really don't have anything else to say about anything he said today. I'll follow the advice of experts. And I think we're very close to a situation where the relevant federal bodies will determine that 3 doses is what's considered fully protected. As for 4th and 5th, let's wait and see how this goes. Being vaccinated saves lives. The notion that this is somehow a bad thing, like the people who would least like to be considered as part of the mainstream are essentially getting themselves very confused and almost adopting some of this anti-vax language. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Vaccines work. That's why, yes, sadly, we have some people who've passed away, and again, we send our deepest sympathies to their families. but it would be thousands and thousands more, particularly given the wildly infectious nature of this Omicron variant, if we hadn't got to 93% and if we weren't out there every day pushing boosters, or really what should be referred to as third doses. The term booster kind of gives people the impression that this is an optional extra. It's not. All the evidence supports that. I think it's only a matter of time before the decision comes down to formalise that.
Now, Dan's Labor counterparts, Michael Gunner in the Northern Territory and Mark McGowan in Western Australia, they've already mandated the booster or third dose for their workforce there. It was back to school in Victoria today. The teachers of Victoria, I think, have until March 22 to get their booster. Otherwise, they won't be able to teach. But yeah, Dan Andrews basically said that we only got such a high vaccination rate because we coerced people to getting the vaccine. No jab, no job, no jab, no entry. I mean, if you look at the booster rate in Victoria now, it's only 38% of over 18s, and of the child vaccinations, it's only the first dose because there's an 8-week gap. Only 40% of eligible 5 to 11-year-olds in Victoria have received a dose of the child Pfizer there. But Dan is, as he said there, he wants to wait until there's agreement in the National Cabinet based on advice from Atagi that the COVID vaccine is a 3-dose schedule for now. Obviously, he was asked about the 4th, 5, and 6, which we've seen the 4th dose in Israel there, and obviously Pfizer's got their Omicron vaccine. But the reason why Dan is not going it alone like he used to is because of his special relationship with the new, relatively new New South Wales Premier, Dominic Perrottet. Now, obviously, they are. It's a weird bromance, to put it mildly. Dominic Perrottet from the right of the New South Wales Liberal Party, Dan Andrews from the socialist left of the Victorian Labor Party. This is in the Guardian here by Michael McGowan and Benita Colvus. There was a similar article in The Age by Chip Legrand. It said, listening to New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet speaking on Friday, you'd be forgiven for thinking that Victoria was a new member of his cabinet. And it goes further down here that it says the dynamic has entirely changed, the Victorian government source said. They have a completely different relationship. They text each other all the time and swap ideas. They genuinely like each other. Cheers, get a room. Dom and Dan sitting in a tree. So yes, this is how, as one of a former Victorian Labor strategist put it, Kos Samara said that because Dan now has this special relationship, romance with Dominic Perrottet, Andrews is able to blunt any political attacks from the state's coalition opposition by following Perrottet's lead. Andrews and Foley, they've said, we're in lockstep with New South Wales. And when Dan returned from his summer holiday, the first Twitter post that he did was a Zoom screenshot with he and Dom talking about the back to school plan. So yes, probably one of the strangest, as I said, a political political couple you could imagine. Now, we had the New South Wales state government on Sunday announced a business relief package, because even though they're hasn't been a lockdown because of the Omicron variant. The business lobby have claimed there's a shadow lockdown because not as many people are coming out to their businesses to shop and dine as they would have liked. So there's now a small business relief package, which is basically free money, and the New South Wales Treasurer, Matt Keane, Green Keane as he is known, took a whack at the federal coalition government for not pitching in for this business package, which I don't know why he'd give such a whack to his federal colleagues in an election year, especially since there was a NewsPoll last night. Yes, I know that NewsPoll was wrong in 2019. It could still be wrong this time, but Labor 56 to the Coalition 44 two-party preferred. And Anthony Albanese is almost neck and neck with Scott Morrison as preferred Prime Minister. Morrison 43, Albanese 41. And for me, the more that I've heard Albo lately, I just can't stand his voice. This nasally voice. It seems to have gotten worse over the past 2 months. He's been on the Dan Andrews diet, much thinner now, and he's got a Julia Gillard pair of spectacles there. And what has he had? He addressed the National Press Club last week and had a zinger where he said, Morrison doesn't hold a hose. He doesn't give a rat's. Ha ha ha's. He's trying to emulate two-time loser Shorten there with his appalling zingers there. And now, obviously, a federal Labor government would mean that Christina Keneally would be the Home Affairs Minister. So she would most likely crack down on patriots, utilizing ASIO and the AFP, if you saw a performance during the extremism inquiry, and Penny Wong would be the foreign minister, and we've seen how she would like Australia to be back cozy with China as well, channeling Paul Keating, the Chinese apologist there. The Beijing Winter Olympics is coming up. They're still trying to maintain COVID zero, the CCP, though thankfully they're not anal schwabbing incoming Winter Olympians. So, well, how very diplomatic of them there, but they're still shoving those PCR swabs right up the nose and down the throat there as well. Scott Morrison the past week trying to win over some environmental votes. He announced $1 billion in funding for the Great Barrier Reef over 10 years, because apparently throwing a bunch of money into the reef can unbleach the reef, the coral in the reef, and can also get rid of the crown of thorns starfish. And he also announced $50 million in funding for koalas. He went for a photo op at Australia Zoo with young Rob Irwin, who is, well, he's now 18 now, sounds exactly like his father, Steve, with a thick Aussie accent there. I don't think that these, even though everyone loves koalas and loves the reef, I don't think it will win many votes. But overall, despite the fact that we still have the mask and QR codes hanging around, and plus in all states and territories outside of New South Wales, the vaccine mandates and passport, overall, the turnaround that Australia has done as a whole to living with COVID has been a massive improvement on the COVID zero policy of the past 2 years. So I don't think that Australia continues to deserve the title of the most totalitarian COVID country besides China and North Korea, obviously. That should now belong to Canada now, because the various provinces of Canada introduced severe restrictions over Christmas due to the Omicron variant. And there has been increasing discrimination against the unvaccinated, which appears to be popular in some segments of the population. According to a recent poll, more than 1/4 of Canadians support jail time for the unvaccinated, NewsPoll finds. The survey also found 66% of Canadians are in favour of mandatory COVID shots for everyone over the age of 5. And Quebec, the French province of Canada, has introduced this quite, you would say, alarming COVID COVID passport management system when it comes to allowing the unvaccinated into shops.
Today, big box stores that have a footprint of 1,500 square meters or more are going to have to ask customers to show proof of vaccination. Now, pharmacies and grocery will be exempt from this. So if you're going into a Costco or a Walmart or something like that, where you might be going in to buy groceries or visit the pharmacy, in that case, an employee will have to be with that person as they walk through the store to make sure that they do not go and buy other products or other items that might be in the store. Now,
yes, so basically, minimum wage employees in retail outlets and pharmacies, they have to now act as health wardens to escort the unvaccinated throughout their stores to make sure that they only buy what are deemed essentials there. That'll probably give Mark McGowan and Michael Gunner some ideas, because WA's vaccinated economy came into force today, which the unvaccinated even locked out from bottle shops. Now, because of these increased measures against the unvaccinated, I mean, in Victoria, I mean, there's no physical vaccine or check-in barrier, but in Canadian stores that they do. I mean, look at that there. Basically looks like some sort of turnstile there. Now, it is also because Canada borders the United States. There's a lot of truckers that go from the United States to Canada, and truckers who delivering goods into Canada have to show proof of vaccination, and truckers all around the world have been one of the industries most severely caught up in the COVID passport mandate, entry permit bureaucracy. So there was this spontaneous trucker convoy that went all throughout Canada and converged yesterday in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, outside Parliament House. It's in the province on Ontario. There was an attempt to have a truckers convoy, I think around about September here in Australia last year, but didn't really happen. But it has happened in Canada. Justin Trudeau tried to play it down when it first took off. This is what he said.
We know the way through this pandemic is by getting everyone vaccinated. And the overwhelming majority, close to 90% of Canadians, have done exactly that. The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
He sounds exactly like Dan there when talking about the science, TM, and people holding unacceptable views. Justin also sounded a lot like his father there, if you know what I mean. Now, Justin Trudeau Obviously, he dismissed the trucking convoy as a tiny minority, but he since had such a freak out that he has now moved to a secret location because, of course, the narrative became that these truckers who must be, of course, far-right, extreme, hold white supremacist views, even though the truckers in Canada who participated in this convoy were all different races. The government in Trudeau's government in Ottawa, they actually, war gamed what they do if there was an insurrection, what documents they would shred, and they wanted to drum up that they were preparing. But Justin Trudeau decided that he would flee for security reasons, i.e. be a coward. I mean, when the Kill the Bill rallies were happening in Melbourne, Dan Andrews didn't hide. I mean, he still turned up to the Parliament. I hear that Justin Trudeau has actually changed his appearance to make sure that he, in his safe location, he goes undetected. So this is one of his disguises here. In the Indian garb, and also his old favorite, the blackface there. So he could be getting out the old blackface paint to make sure that he goes undetected all throughout Canada. Now, unsurprisingly, the Canadian convoy, once that arrived in Ottawa, like the Kill the Bill rallies were in Melbourne, was 100% peaceful. This is just a small snippet of the truckers here. And now, as people have pointed out, that without truckers, then the supply chain can't function. I mean, it's because of a lot of truckers having to isolate here over summer in Australia, while the shelves were a bit thin for a while. But as I just showed with that poll, the people of Canada, you would say they've been coached very well to despise the unvaccinated, even want them jailed, and they've voted for Justin Trudeau in 3 elections. He first won in 2015, re-elected in 2019, and just re-elected last year. So Cut Canadianistan still living up to its name, but certainly the truckers of Canada have raised awareness to the heinous vaccine segregation that is happening in Canada. I mean, Australia has not been alone in that regard. Most of mainland Europe still has vaccine passports in use, and the truckers, they also had the support of Tesla billionaire, the maverick billionaire Elon Musk. So they're getting some support in some high up places there. Now, speaking of someone who is in a high up place and has, the #1 podcast in the world, and has interviews people across the political spectrum and extremes on his podcast, Joe Rogan. Last year, he signed an exclusive deal to have his podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, on Spotify. It's now exclusive to Spotify. I don't have Spotify myself. I've never really gotten into Joe Rogan, not to say that I don't like him, but I've also never gotten into Tim Pool or Dave Rubin. But the the cancel culture pressure on Spotify really intensified after he had Robert Malone on his podcast, the doctor who is speaking out against the mRNA COVID vaccines, and Peter McCall who's the cardiologist, talking about myocarditis. So there was a petition of scientists, say, to Spotify to get Joe Rogan cancelled off Spotify. And then Neil Young, the aging folk rock boomer, said that if you do not cancel Joe Rogan, I'll remove my music from Spotify. And Spotify said, allow us to remove your back catalog from Spotify. Neil Young is his best known song to people of our generation is his song "Rockin' in the Free World," which is actually it's a sarcastic, like when he says "rockin' in the free world," it's actually sarcasm, because in that song he talks about all the social ills in America, and so he just says, "Oh, let's just keep rocking in the free world because apparently we're free." So it's actually he's a cynic on the free world there. Well, he supports censorship now, and he was joined by Joni Mitchell, another boomer musician. And another major signing for Spotify, Harry and Meghan. They're not cancelling their Spotify $34 million contract, but expressed concern about COVID misinformation. They actually haven't produced any Spotify content yet, but they sort of released a statement. Yes, we don't like COVID misinformation, but we will still pocket the $34 million from Spotify, and so even though, and eventually we'll get around to producing some podcasts. I know that Apple Music, which is the music streaming platform that I use since I have an iPhone, said that they were now the home of Neil Young. Listen to his entire catalog on Apple Music. There was some fake news that Barry Manilow had removed his catalog from Spotify. Though Barry Manilow said that these rumors were not true, because Barry Manilow can't smile without Spotify, and he believes that Spotify came without taking, and he doesn't want to send them away. Old Spotify. We did, though, have a threat from James Blunt, who said that if Spotify doesn't remove Joe Rogan, then he will release new music onto Spotify. And James Blunt's song "You're Beautiful" is now one of the most hated, basically nails on a chalkboard songs of all time. I mean, it's even more egregious to listen to than Rebecca Black's "Friday," put it that way. Now, an upgrade on the Russia-Ukraine tension nothing burger, because last week I mentioned the Russian build-up on the Ukrainian border, which is aimed to basically secure the peaceful existence of Russian minorities on the Ukrainian border. Russia would only annex the territory there if there was some sort of Ukrainian militia violence or ethnic cleansing on the border. And we had the Ukraine president last week, so Volodymyr Zelensky. He, if you recall, before he was president, he was comedian, but he was being super serious by telling the West to not create panic. I mean, a lot of the Western countries evacuated their embassies in Kiev. I mean, the Russian army is not going to take Kiev. They're not interested in taking over Ukraine as a whole. So basically said that you're hurting the Ukrainian economy, just chillax, you and the media as well. And even though Australia really shouldn't concern itself with the Russia-Ukraine territorial disputes, Defense Minister Peter Dutton, he last week described Vladimir Putin as an increasingly irrational, aging dictator. The Russian ambassador in Australia, Dr. Alexei Pavlovsky, responded, if such is the level of analysis informing Australian policy, then it's definitely a worrying sign. Australia is definitely entitled to more meaningful understanding of the situation than comic book style propaganda like Batman versus Joker. And he accused the Morrison government of fanning hysteria from thousands of miles away. And he said that troops on the Ukrainian border are a warning, not a threat, if that makes sense. Now, going back to the Canadian truckers, now obviously they've inspired truckers worldwide. There was another attempt to have a trucker convoy to Canberra today. There was about, crowd estimates, about 1,000 people there. It was entirely peaceful. Though a GoFundMe froze the crowdfunding. It was about $160,000. The anonymous organizer calls themselves Ironbark Thunderbolt, isn't able to access the funds until they're able to detail how the money will be spent, according to GoFundMe. The funds will be held safely until the organizer completes the verification process and able to find documentation how the funds will be distributed. On the convoy's GoFundMe description, the person who calls themselves Ironbark Thunderbolt says the money will be given to West Australian doomsday prepper James Greer, who has declared his intention to drive his camper to Canberra to protest vaccine mandates. The truckers in Canada were able to use GoFundMe to raise 6.7 million Canadian dollars there. All right, that brings us to the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. There probably won't be a Wilmsfront featured interview program this Thursday, but never say never. There could be a spontaneous interview guest, but depending on what's in the news by Thursday, and then of course Trad Tasman talk on Friday evening. Speaking about the latest in the New Zealand Omicron response, which is similar to that in Western Australia, which is basically keeping the country isolated, even though Omicron is there. And they've even locked out a pregnant TV reporter, Charlotte Bellis, who was a correspondent during the Taliban's takeover in Afghanistan for Al Jazeera. She found out she was pregnant last year to her boyfriend, who is a New York Times photographer based in Belgium. She was told by her doctor in Doha, Qatar, that she better get out of the country because it's illegal to be unmarried and pregnant. So despite the fact that the 2022 World Cup will be in Qatar and everyone talks about the Taliban's mistreatment of women, I mean, the World Cup's going to be a country which it's illegal for any woman to be pregnant and unmarried. So she was relieved when the government announced that New Zealand would open its border to citizens at the end of February. But she hasn't been able to secure a MIQ space. So she was only allowed to spend 3 months in her boyfriend's home country of Belgium as a non-EU resident. So she went back to Afghanistan. The Taliban, even though she was unmarried and pregnant, they offered her a safe haven there. So she said, when the Taliban offers you a pregnant unmarried woman safe haven, you know the situation is messed up. And Jacinda Ardern, like Justin Trudeau, has gone into hiding because she has become a close contact all of a sudden from a flight 7 days ago. So she's in isolation. She tested negative. So she's allowed her beta quarantine minister, Chris Hipkins, to basically defend this inhumane treatment, the denial of a right of return to this pregnant Kiwi. But obviously, it's also good PR for the Taliban in there. What is that? Rehabilitation Taliban 2.0. See, we're not that mean to women anymore. We allowed this unmarried Western woman safe haven in our country. So I'll be discussing that on Trad Tasman Talk on Friday. Obviously, they're still continuing to justify their hard border. Because, well, there's the new son of Omicron variant now. Well, it's arrived in Australia. There's not many cases. This meme is going around. Okay, son, make me proud. Wreak havoc on 2022. Be stealthy. Yes, Papa, I will. And then poor Delta in the background. Born to try. I've learned to love. All gobbled up and cast aside there. But we heard from the Deputy Chief Medical Officer of Australia, Michael Kidd, that Omicron might have some other children as well floating around, not just a son, but maybe some daughters and maybe some non-binary intersex children as well. So we'll see what happens in that regard. All right, everybody, see you later in the week. Have a safe and also cool week because it has been so hot in Australia. Fingers crossed there'll be a cool change. Good night, everybody.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Just before I go, in the post show, a super chat over on Entropy from Naughty Design. $3 Australian. Keep pushing, Timbo. I certainly will.